Hi, Survivor casting team. My name is Kyle Sullivan. I'm 32 years old. I'm from Frankfort, Illinois. I'm an assistant bakery manager at a grocery store called Mariano's. And this is why I feel like I would win Survivor if you were to cast me. First, let's talk a little bit about myself. I've lived in the south suburbs of Chicago my whole life, except for a couple years of college. I grew up in an area of the south suburbs where, it was very racially and economically diverse. Some kids, there's a decent amount of black kids, white kids, Hispanic kids. And I was able to connect with a bunch of different people from different backgrounds. So me and my friends, very racially and economically diverse, but we also have a wide array of interests. When we hang out, one time when we're hanging out, we could be hitting up a comic book store. The next time we're hanging out, we could be at a music festival. The next time we're hanging out, we could, be at a hockey game or a baseball game. We have a wide array of interests. So that's something that I feel like I kind of stands out about me, right? So I feel like I would win this game because I feel like I'm a threat in 3 different areas. That's strategic, social, and physical, right? So let's talk about strategic. So I've been a big fan of the show since I was a kid. The first season I watched live was Survivor Australia. Something that me and my mom bonded over very quickly. We've watched every season. Personally, I've watched every season. I've watched the vast majority of the seasons multiple times over. I remember vividly watching Survivor Africa. My mom was a big fan of Big Tom, and I was a big fan of Lex Venderberg. I just thought he was so cool with all the tattoos and the piercings and stuff. And little me, that was probably 7, 8 years old, something like that. I just thought that was so cool, right? So imagine both of our surprises when, both of them lose and get voted out. And then imagine our surprise when both of them come back for Survivor All-Stars and lose again. No, but that's something that, me and my mom, we've, bonded over for 20 something years now. We watch all the seasons and we're just a big fan of the show. It's something that, we talk about every day. So strategically, I've seen every season. I know what it takes to win this game. Socially, I feel like that's going to be my strongest suit, right? So for me, as I said, I grew up in an area of the suburbs of Chicago that was very racially and economically diverse. One kid next to me could be black, the next one could be white, the next one could be Hispanic. One kid's parents could be doctors or lawyers. Another kid, could be living in a single parent household, whose parent is working 2 to 3 jobs to make ends meet. Another kid, parents could be union workers. Like, it was a wide array of backgrounds in the area that I grew up in. And I feel very fortunate to have grown up in that area. But then when I went to college, I went to Western Illinois University. And a little thing about Western Illinois is that, their moniker is the Leathernecks. And Leatherneck is a nickname for a Marine. So because of that, they've done, a bunch of different outreaches and connections with the armed forces. So a lot of vets go to Western Illinois University. And it's also known for their law enforcement program. So that kind of breeds a little bit more conservative types, right? So, but, growing up, I grew up in a little liberal part of the state, and I went to school in the more conservative part of the state. And I was able to chop it up and connect with people, from different races and different, political backgrounds and things like that. And yet, I was able to connect with people well. And that's something that I feel like would be my strongest suit. And even then, to speak on my social game, I rushed, Greek life. So once again, kept up with the whole social aspect. And then I also was a sideline reporter. I announced basketball games. I hosted a radio show. So, being social is kind of who I am. And that's going to be the biggest part of my game. And even then, after I graduated, I've worked in food and retail for the past close to 10 years. I worked at Subway for a while. I've worked in a grocery store for the past 6 years or so. So I've had to deal with people cursing me out over the most mundane things and then being able to talk to them face to face with a smile on my face. Hi, how can I assist you today? So, being social and, being able to socialize with people from different backgrounds, and even when I'm feeling the pressure of, someone else cursing me out right in front of me, that's something that I've dealt with God knows how many times. So I feel like socially, it's something that I would excel at. And then, physically, look, I'm 5'3", 5'4". I'm a big dude. You know, especially when I have the beard going, you know, people say I resemble a teddy bear, which isn't totally inaccurate. But you know, I feel like, you know, people would underestimate my ability to play the physical game well. But you know, despite what it may look like, you know, you know, for the past several years, I have worked out 3 to 4 times a week. My leg day is very impressive. I can squat 365 pounds. That's something that I do, and you know, something else that I enjoy outside of work. So you know, I feel like, you know, my physical game probably wouldn't be the strongest. You know, I know I'm not going to be, you know, Ozzy out there or anything like that, but you know, I feel like that I can hold my own. So I feel like, you know, with strategically and socially, you know, I'd be able to, you know, heavily rely on those two things, but I feel like I'd be able to, you know, hold my own physically. But because of all that, I feel like I would be an incredible Survivor player. And yeah, so I'm very excited. I've never applied before, and I'm looking forward to getting a call back when you guys decide that you guys want me to be on as the next winner.